One of the more popular videos on the channel over the last few weeks has been my mock draft. I stopped at 7. Why did I stop at 7? Explain why I stopped at 7. And yeah, there were people that were a little bit upset that, hey, he stopped at 7. This isn't a mock draft. Because this draft is so wide open. It is a very, very wide open draft. Now, I know there's a lot of people that want to see Capo Kakko go at number 1. All of Finland, for instance. But it seems like Jack Hughes is going to go first. Uh, Despite Kakko appearing to be the more ready player on the international circuit, when they play for their national teams, it seems like Kakko's the one that shines more than does Jack Hughes. I can't see New Jersey passing on him. That being said, could it happen? Sure. But for the interesting thing to me has been there's been a lot of articles about Kakko at number 2 and could he threaten number 1, and almost every article ends with, but Jack Hughes is still number 1. But Jack Hughes probably still goes at 1. So the idea that these guys are going to be in any different order is interesting, but it falls apart. I had to laugh too. They had an interview with the Rangers general manager about whether or not the Rangers might be in the market to move that number 2 draft pick. I think that was on NHL.com. A bold strategy on their part to ask a completely stupid question. Because there's no way that the New York Rangers, after winning the draft lottery by moving up to number 2, there's no way, no chance they're moving that number 2 pick. This kid projects to be pretty fantastic. He and Hughes are going to be compared to one another a lot, sort of like Laine and Matthews, as an example from a recent draft. Now, at 3, Bowen Byram seems to be the most likely pick. Now, in red, that's TSN's picks. In blue, at the bottom, that's Sportsnet's. In the middle, I've got the picks according to the draft preview from the Hockey News. So this comes out every year, and I got it in the mail, and I've looked at it a few times, and I will look through it a lot coming up to the draft. Now, I've also had the benefit of doing draft videos all year and having information provided to me by hockeyprospect.com, which I don't get paid for, but it's a mutually beneficial thing that I discuss them, their website, and their scouting information, and in return they provide me with information that means that I'm not completely in the dark when I talk about draft picks as I would have been last year. And the reason they reached out to me was because when Joe Veleno fell, they told me, hey, we actually had Joe Veleno as possibly going early in the second round. So we'll see what their prospect rankings are this year. Now, I don't have the book from them yet, so I can't put that on the board. But what I can do is tell you guys that in black, those are the picks I made. And I think 1 through 3 are pretty solid. I don't see Byram slipping past Chicago. I know Chicago has a lot of defensive prospects. But if you have defensive prospects and you have a chance to draft a guy that could end up being a Morgan Riley type, that could end up being a 60-65 point defenseman, you're going to take him. A guy who could score 20 goals, you're going to take him. And I'm aware that they've got Broberg and Yoki Haru and whatnot, but you can't have too many defensemen. Ask Nashville. Now, at 4, this is where things kind of get different. Kirby Dack, according to TSN. Kirby Dack, according to the Hockey News. And Alex Turcotte, according to Sportsnet. I put Dylan Cousins there. Cousins was 3, according to the Hockey News. So, and the Hockey News doesn't do it as a mock draft. They just say, here's our rankings of where we think everybody is. And their rankings aren't just like copy and paste from international scouting. They are their own rankings. They're completely different. Sometimes they get them really, really solid. Sometimes they pick guys to be first round picks that aren't and turn out to be pretty good, and sometimes it's the other way around. And I've got enough of these magazines that during the summer I can look back at old draft previews from them and say, here's where they got it right, and here's where they were off. Now at 5, this is where it starts to get really all over the place. So two pick Dak here, 1 picks Turcotte, and of course Alex Turcotte's been gaining a lot of buzz as we get closer and closer to the draft. At 5, Cole Caulfield, according to TSN. Vasily Podkolzin, according to the Hockey News. Trevor Zegras, according to Sportsnet. And I had Alex Turcotte here. Now, the lowest you find Turcotte on this board is 10 for Vancouver. If Turcotte gets drafted by Vancouver, you guys are going to have a whole new set of gifts that you guys can make of me partying because Turcotte's been drafted by the Canucks. I can't see him falling that far. What terrifies me for the Canucks is TSN picking Vasily Podkolzin because of the Canucks' spotty history when it comes to these feast or famine players. And Podkolzin definitely is that. We could look back 5 years from now and say, man, did teams ever miss the boat on that guy? Or it was pretty smart that teams avoided him. A good example is back when Pierre-Luc Dubois gets drafted instead of Jesse Puljujarvi. There are plenty of people, including myself, and there's a draft reaction video of it, that felt that it was a huge mistake for Columbus not to take Puljujarvi. Now Edmonton gets this great star player, and then it didn't work out that way. Podkolzin kind of feels to me like it could be great, could be bad, and again with Vancouver, yeah. Now back up to the middle part of the board here, where I had Turcotte, and then the next pick, Dylan Cozens. Dylan Cozens, if he gets drafted by Detroit, I'm going to say right now, he's a good center, and Detroit definitely needs those. And if Yzerman's drafting Cozens as the first draft pick he makes as a Detroit Red Wings GM, Cozens will be compared to Yzerman right away. That'll happen. Bowen Byram, the Hockey News has him at 6. I can't see Byram dropping to 6. Really, really can't. Not with the end of the season that he had for Vancouver. And Dylan Cozens is 6, according to Sportsnet as well. And then I had Podkolzin here because I think that as much as Cozens going there might be interesting, I also think that, Podkolzin, Yzerman's shown before. He has no fear when it comes to drafting Euros and drafting Euros that other teams might be avoiding. So you look at what the lineup is with the Tampa Bay Lightning, it would not be surprising to me if Podkolzin ended up in Detroit. At 7, Turcotte, according to TSN. And that's a list they made 10 days ago. I don't think anything's really changed in the last 10 days for Turcotte. Zegras, according to the Hockey News. Podkolzin, according to Sportsnet. So Sportsnet still has Podkolzin going this soon. And that's a draft preview mock draft they did at the start of the month. So it's only a few weeks ago. And again, while this draft class has been moving a lot, believe me, I've been watching it. I haven't seen anybody move as much as Podkolzin, who 3 months ago was number 3, solidly entrenched. You had your top 2, you had your number 3, and then you had everybody else. You had 4 through 10 was kind of fluid. Now it's everything beyond 3 is fluid, but it's Byram that now takes that number 3 spot. Now I stopped at 7, and I stopped with Kirby Dach. Now Dach actually goes 8 according to Sportsnet, goes 4 according to TSN and to the Hockey News. And I stopped because to me, I could not figure out who I thought would probably go next. There's a lot of centers who are in and around that same area. If you look at Dach, you look at Turcotte, you look at Cozens. Any of these guys could end up becoming the class of the draft at the center position. Almost as much as Hughes. And I'm going to just say that straight up. I think that while Hughes is going to be the best guy in the draft, overall, I don't think it's going to be this huge difference between he and whichever other center ends up being the number 2 guy. It doesn't feel like that kind of draft. Odds are one of these guys is gonna catch up, but which one, no idea. And could it be somebody that's not in amongst the top 7? Absolutely. So at 8, Boldy according to TSN and the Hockey News, and as I said, Dach according to Sportsnet. At 9, Zegras. Caulfield, there's a lot of people who are high on Cole Caulfield as well. Caulfield, number 5 according to TSN, number 9 according to the Hockey News, and number 12 according to Sportsnet. showing just how widely varied opinions are when it comes to players in this draft class. This is a very tough draft class to handicap. Although, number 9 is Matthew Boldy, according to Sportsnet. So Boldy going at 8 or 9 is kind of confirmed, I guess. So if I was doing this based on these picks, I'd go, yeah, all right, I'll predict Boldy at 8. And again, at 10, with Vancouver, Podkolzin, according to TSN. Turcotte, according to the Hockey News, which would be fantastic. And Krebs, according to Sportsnet. Peyton Krebs, 10 here, and 11, according to both TSN and the Hockey News. And I looked through various other sources, too. There are a lot of, in this day and age of the internet, there are a lot of fan-based draft, like mock drafts. And that's fun. It's fun to go through and make up your own mock draft, and here we go, here's what it is, and see how right or wrong you are. I did that with the expansion draft before Vegas made their expansion picks. And nope. Yeah, really far off on it. But again, a lot of that had to do with side deals that were made. And just, I had a higher opinion of some players than others. I still, though, would have drafted Grubauer instead of Marc-Andre Fleury, personally. Just personally. And I know everybody loves Fleury now in Vegas, but I still stand by that I thought Grubauer was just... And I know that means they wouldn't have had Schmidt either, so that changes the whole feel of their team, right? Arthur Kalia is an interesting one. So here he is at 12, according to TSN. Kalia is... I know he's number 17, according to Sportsnet. And Kalia does not show up until 17... or 18 on the Hockey News. And that's one that's interesting to me. When I see the ones that have that much of a difference, 12 through 18, those are guys who may very well end up at 12, may very well drop right off the board. We're going to see guys who are massive drops, where it's like, wait, why isn't he taken yet? And once I get the massive book from... Hockey Prospect, because they put out a 400-page book with all the news and notes on all the top prospects in the draft. Be interesting to see who may end up dropping, because there's going to be some big droppers. Brett Leeson at 23, if you're a Flames fan. That looks like there's a 2 out of 3 chance that he ends up there. Although Sportsnet has him at 23, going to the Islanders. Bobby Brink, which is a fantastic name. But with the name Bobby Brink, I'm surprised he doesn't drive NASCAR. Bobby Brink just sounds like a NASCAR name. That's a guy who drives for 4 hours and just turns left. That's what that sounds like to me. And that's NASCAR. Drive for 4 hours and turn left. I wonder if they shout that on the headset. Turn left! And there's that one guy, just that one time goes, I think you gotta turn right here. No! Wall. This is going to be a very interesting month of June. I'm very anxious about this. We are 3 weeks away from the draft. Isn't that awesome? So for fans who are looking at the Stanley Cup final going, I don't care about either of those teams. I don't care who wins. I hope they kill each other. Well, here you go. You got the draft to discuss. And I don't have draft picks 30 and 31 on the board because we don't know yet who's going to draft, whether it be St. Louis or Boston. But very interesting draft. And if Anaheim drafts well at 29 as well as what they get at 9, they could make some inroads. Not this season with those 2 picks, because 29 isn't very likely to be ready for this year. You know what's funny? One thing that's really changed since the channel started 3 years ago, when a guy got drafted, if it was outside of, say, top 7, top 10, I would immediately say, won't be ready for training camp. Not going to make a difference for at least a couple of years. That has really changed in the last 3 years. It has absolutely changed in that it sort of feels like these kids that are brought up through juniors and through the U.S. National Development Team Program, which is fantastic. They are more NHL ready now than ever. So I don't rule out a number 29 pick necessarily being ready to go, especially if Anaheim goes with somebody out of the U.S. NDTP. Unless, of course, that player is then going to go to NCAA. But yeah, if they're willing to go right from the U.S. National Team Development Program to the NHL, they could very well do it. There you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who you think are going to be the big movers up, and which player do you think is rated too high? Which player do you think is going to end up dropping? That everybody's all sold on, and you think, you know what, that guy's going to drop like a rock. Let me know what you guys think, and the Spencer Knight thing as well. Here's the trivia with Spencer Knight. Knight, the earliest that he's drafted in any of these projections is Sportsnet putting him at 18 to Dallas. I wouldn't mind seeing that either. 19 to Ottawa, which would make a lot of sense, according to the Hockey News. And 22 to LA, which would make not a lot of sense, but TSN has him at 22. And I say that because they have Peterson, they have Campbell, they still have Quick. I don't know that LA necessarily needs a goalie, but remember, goaltenders do tend to usually take longer to develop. So you never know where you might be in 2 to 3 years with your goaltenders. So if this guy does project to be a pretty darn solid number one goalie, pick him up. Ottawa, I think, though, is where he's likely to end up if he slips into this area. But I would be very surprised if a team in the top 15 doesn't take a shot at it. And I'm looking at Florida and maybe even Montreal. Because I think this draft is going to be that unpredictable. I think that would be a lot of fun. So we'll probably take one more final look at the draft before it comes to pass. I'm thinking probably about a week before it happens. And try to make some bold picks of where we think people are going to go. And I'm saying we because I may very well make a live stream out of it. Where, we go through and we just try to come up with some kind of a consensus as a channel with where we think guys are going to go. I think that would be kind of fun. But that's a ways off. Let me know what you guys think about that as well. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.